servicing that debt means paying the interest on it, right? These are called coverage ratios. And the first one is known as times interest earned, or TI ratio. It's basically simple. Take EBIT divided by the interest. So before you pay the interest and IRS puts its hands on your income, to what extent you can pay interest. And you want this number to be significantly greater than that. Probably even 2 is desirable. Because a times interest ratio of 1 means you're basically getting along. All you can do is pay the interest, and that's it. And once you pay the interest, there's not going to be anything left for the IRS. In fact, this is a theorem. If TI ratio is 1, you have 0 taxes. Think about it. What's your earnings before taxes? EBIT plus EBIT minus interest, right? Well, if times is equal to 1, EBIT divided by interest is 1, or EBIT is exactly equal to interest. So a firm that has a TI of 1 pays no taxes. Not that you're going to see that very often. You definitely don't want one of your borrowers to have a TI less than 1. That means they can't even service the interest. There is one correction we're going to make to this. Part of that EBIT is the depreciation. Depreciation is not a cash expense. So in that sense, if a firm has high depreciation, or in fact, you may even deduct some other non-cash expenses like stock-based compensation. For example, if you look at NVIDIA, they show a R&D expense of close to $8 billion last year. Well, NVIDIA being NVIDIA, they do a lot of R&D. But if you look at the statement of cash flows, about $3 billion of that is stock-based compensation. So I would take that out as well. And this one is called cash coverage ratio. For the purposes of this class only, this is equal to EBIT plus depreciation divided by interest. In fact, that thing on the numerator is also known as EBITDA. You definitely want this thing to be significantly north of 1. Right? And if you're doing this for financial analysis purpose, suppose you're a credit officer, law officer, you definitely want to take out other kind of non-cash expenses. If I'm lending to NVIDIA, not that they need any, I'm going to actually take out that stock-based compensation, because that has nothing to do with their ability to service this loan. So a cash coverage ratio is a little bit of more liberal, more forgiving ratio. So you can afford that to be lower, if you think about it. And after I go home today, I'm going to actually make little problem videos for short-term, long-term coverage ratios. And I'm going to also talk about today asset efficiency ratios. So please watch them, all right? And I keep giving you guys little feedback on the quizzes. Some of you actually do follow it, because I see the increase in the views on those problems. And suddenly their grades go up. I had one student, the first attempt was 57, the third attempt was 95. It's not magic. If you actually look at this stuff, how it is done, and you see similar problem, you get it done. You don't have to be a genius to actually figure that out. That's why I put those videos in there. Do you really think that I like spending that much time? I mean, I do other things in the side, but while I'm doing these videos, I also record those. Please watch them. And also pay attention to definitions. I see students losing points from just a definition of question. I mean, it's your quiz, it's your grade, and it's your money. But that's kind of an unforced error, right? In tennis. Or in baseball, it's, knowingly pitching above the head of the guy. I mean, yes, sometimes you throw a ball, but for a reason, just to fool him. No, that's what sliders and knuckleballs are for. So pay attention to the definition. Some of you finish the quiz in 15 minutes. It takes me 15 minutes at a minimum to do those quizzes. Why? Because I pay attention to details. Presumably, I know a little bit more about these things than you do. But I created some of those questions myself. Despite that, it takes me physically 15 minutes to do it. I had one student who did it in 8 minutes. And I didn't ask, but I am sure he was surprised that he got only 40%. You're basically guessing. And that's okay if you want to guess, that's your business. All right, now let's talk about asset efficiency ratios. Solvency measures like short-term, long-term, or coverage, they were intended for a particular audience. They basically asked the rough question of, is this firm in deep duty? Okay? It's kind of what you're trying to see as far as being able to pay their loans are concerned. For the longer term stuff, the shareholders are also interested in that, but coverage ratios are more of an interest to actual creditors. Obviously, short-term solvency ratios, like current ratio, they're of interest to short-term creditors. Now we're going to provide some measures that are more for internal audience. Let's say I'm a COO, Chief Operating Officer, or CEO. And I want to think about how good of a job my inventory manager is doing, okay? Or salespeople are doing. Remember, having too much inventory is costly. Let's assume that stuff you're having in your inventory is not even perishable. If we're talking about tomatoes, that's a different business. Or if we're talking about strawberries, obviously there is an extra cost of keeping that inventory. But if you have a TV over there, what's the cost of holding the inventory? What do you think? I'm a TV selling company. I buy other companies' TV. Think of Best Buy. They don't produce anything themselves. So if you want to buy a computer from Best Buy, you go there, you buy a Dell, you buy an HP, what have you. But if nobody buys it, it stays in their warehouse. So what happens to those computers in their warehouse? If there is proper climate protection, nothing, physically, nothing. But what did you do to have those computers in your warehouse? What did you do? How did you bring them to your warehouse? Please do not say by a truck. I was in a military boarding school, freshman year in high school. As you may have guessed, I was not an athletically gifted guy. One of the reasons I was able to get in there, I was intellectually gifted. 'Cause at that time, they were in big demand. They had a separate entrance exam. 10,000 people got in. I was number 33. Then during the PE classes are a little bit more rigorous in military boarding schools compared to what you would have had in a standard high school. And our PE teacher that year was a guy whose side job was being the coach of the gymnastics team. He gave us exercises that basically required me to be the male version of Nadia Comaneci, or you guys may know as Simone Biles. Nadia Comaneci was Simone Biles of the 1970s. She was a Romanian gymnast. I think she got the first perfect 10 in gymnastics. And